Okay, you're live. Connect to Millionaire, episode number 12. Today's like the 3rd or the 4th, June 4th, 2000. I was going to say 2002, 2000, then I was going to say 2012,
Wow,
2022.
craziness.
Mm-hmm.
Already, like, the year's almost half over and it just got started. So,
Yeah, sure. Way fast.
phenomenon. How does that happen?
The days go by fast, which makes the week go by fast, which makes the month go by fast,
Mhm.
which makes the year go by fast, which makes life go by fast.
That's reverse engineering, huh? At its finest.
At its finest. All right. Let me pull up the book. Oh, book. What's that
Name
from?
that for an
Name
extra
that.
prize. Is
Mhm.
that
Okay.
Hocus Pocus? Oh, I
Yes.
just gave it away.
Okay, let's dive in. Darling, just dive right in. Follow my lead. What song is that?
That's Ed Sheeran.
Yes. Okay, name that tune. So we left off right here. What we are seeking, therefore, is to discover how to arrange things in such an order as to set in motion a train of causation. That too, like, how would you like your life to be? You could, like, what's the fantasy life look like? Um, and a lot of times, I think we get pieces, people get pieces of that, or they get pieces of what they don't like, and they're druthers. I'd rather be doing this than what I'm doing right now. I think that, and if we could get to where I'm so excited about what I'm doing right now. Like if that was our daily living in our life, instead of I'd rather be doing this, we really can get it to where it's like we're so excited about. That's how we've lived. I'd say for the most part, like over 90% of what we've done over the last 17 years. Maybe not as much at the beginning of those 17 years, but as we've built and fantasized and held that vision in our minds as a evolving, already accomplished fact that has evolved. For the majority of those 17 years, we've been like that. Like I haven't said I'd rather be doing this. I like enjoy what I do every day.
Yeah, I think
That
I'll
doesn't mean that.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Doesn't mean that what?
Uh, I was just gonna say it's doesn't mean that there's not times in the day where there aren't lulls or where I'm not in a biologically low rhythm. I'm not always enthusiastic and excited and want to hug everybody. It's not how I feel all the time, but that doesn't mean that I'm hating that moment. It's just those biological rhythms that Bob Proctor talks about that you just can't get away from. It's part of life. But as far as what I get to do and what I want to do, it's the same pretty much for the last, I don't know, the majority of those 17 years, especially late, the last 10 for sure, or more than 10 years. That's pretty awesome. I mean, I'm very grateful for that. I have a huge amount of gratitude and appreciation and gratefulness for it. And it didn't come without work. It wasn't easy. It wasn't simple.
Well, and it's not that the work is in the past tense either. Like it's a daily decision to bring yourself into harmony with the conditions of how you want to feel. I think, well, I notice where a lot of us get off base is thinking that life has to look a certain way before we can feel the way we want to feel. And the thing is even if life looked exactly like your vision board, if you haven't learned how to bring the way you feel into harmony with what you think those circumstances are going to provide for you, you won't feel it still. And then you'll wonder, what's wrong with me? You know, you'll start looking still at what's wrong around you, because it's hard for us to want to take responsibility. And that doesn't mean, oh, I just rubbed my eyes and forgot that I had put some mascara on. No big deal. Anyways, I see so often that, if somebody says, well, I have to take 100% responsibility for my life, then that means that I'm the one that caused this cancer, or I'm the one that caused, I don't know, the earthquake that happened. I don't know what it is, but we take responsibility for things that aren't ours to take responsibility for. And we don't take responsibility for what it is that we do have responsibility for. It gets really confusing. And I don't think that's wrong. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're lazy. It just means that you still haven't learned how to understand it and what it means. But if I've started calling, and it might just be because of my temperament type. I'm a feeler. I'm a C in the language that I like to use for personality. But I turned my vision board into a feeling board, because I have things on my board. I have a picture of a cottage in the countryside, and on the countryside in Europe. And the feeling that brings to me is a feeling of connecting with other people, because I'm there I can, speak their language. I'm being immersed in their culture. I'm able to understand people from their point of view, because I'm in their world. It's relaxing, it's comfortable. And so from that picture, I look and I'm like, okay, what is the feeling that picture brings me? What's the feeling that I'll have, that I do have, when I think about all of those things? And I can actually locate the feelings in my body, and I can put myself in that circumstance even if I'm not there. So then I walk away from my vision board and I start noticing all the things I don't want in my life again, and the feeling is gone. And then it feels like frustrating, because my vision board is on the wall and it's not in my life. But when I can say, okay, the connection, the comfort, the peace that I feel from looking at that picture, the excitement that I feel from being able to, have a conversation with someone in French or Spanish or whatever, brings me excitement. It brings me this, I know exactly what it feels like in my body. Then I can leave the picture or the thought in my mind, and I can look for that feeling around me and what's going on right now. One thing that I've learned to do is to go outside and look up at the sky. And the looking at the sky gives me the same feeling that I get when I look at that picture on my vision board. And so then I have it right now. And it doesn't matter what the circumstances of my life look like. It doesn't matter what somebody else is doing. I don't have to take responsibility for the fact that COVID happened. It's not, I didn't cause that to happen, but my experience through COVID was 100% my responsibility. Being able to look at the sky while I'm wearing a mask, walking into a store. I don't want to be wearing a mask. I don't like the way it feels if I'm thinking about what the mask represents to me in my mind. But when I can walk into the store with the mask in my hand and look at the sky and remember the connection and the comfort and the peace that I feel because of that, then I can go in the store. I don't even notice the mask. I can still smile at people with my eyes, even though they can't see my mouth. I can say hello. They can still hear my voice. It's not like, I realized that I was looking at the mask as a way for people to be afraid of each other. And I was looking at the mask as a way of not being able to breathe or to, speak very well. And like, I can still breathe and I can still speak to people and I can still smile at them with my eyes. And it changed my experience with wearing a mask. And anyway, it's what I have now can be what it is that I want. The more that I find the feelings that I want to feel now, it's amazing. But the pieces of my life start to collect, it's like all the feelings that I want to feel are kind of dispersed around me. And when I start noticing those dispersed feelings, they start coming together like a magnet, and they start to form the things physically in my life that I have on my vision board. But when I'm feeling my way to it, I almost don't even notice that I don't notice that I don't have what I want. And so I almost don't even notice that those things are coming into my life until I'm there in the moment. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is on my vision board and this is what I'm living right now. And I almost didn't notice because I've been feeling it the whole time. And that doesn't mean it's 100%. Yeah, the biological rhythm happens for lots of reasons. But anyway, I could keep going, but I will just finish by saying that a lot of what happens is that because of the way that we've learned to think through our whole life, and the way we've learned to interpret things that happen is so strong because we've been doing it for so long, that it's really easy to have those take over in the snap of a moment, because it's the pathway that our brain has been used to traveling all this time. And it takes work to change the pathway. If I've been driving a truck on a muddy road for a lot of years, there's going to be ruts that my tires want to go into. And if I don't want to drive in those ruts anymore, I've got to fill in I can either like white knuckle it and stay in between the ruts. And that's hard to do, especially if it's a dirt road, it's bumpy and my wheels are going to go down in, right? And so I can either do that, or I can take the time to fill in the ruts and recreate a new pathway. And that might be harder in the beginning, but it's a lot easier in the long run. And that's the hard work that a lot of people don't want to do. I think mostly because they don't understand what's going on. And so it just feels like it's going to fail before it even starts. When you understand what's going on and you understand what needs to be done, or have somebody help you know what needs to be done, then the hard work becomes more worth it because you realize it's going to be easier down the road. So
Yeah. So organizing this into a practical application, then I would recommend listening to Feeling is the Secret, because that is the key to accomplishing your goals, is getting the feeling first. And so if we reverse engineer kind of this, what I was writing down while you were talking, assumption is a principle, assuming something, our expectation, the feeling that we get that goes along with that assumption. And then we just ignore everything else. It's called the law of non-resistance, L&R. So if we assume what we want and put a feeling behind it, and that's our expectation, and we ignore everything else, then we start to attract those circumstances and everything that we need to manifest it. So if we reverse engineer that process, we have it, we feel it, we assume it, we design it, and we want it. So it's in the wanting, the designing, and the assuming, and the feeling that we receive the joy. I'm not happy and grateful because I'm happy and grateful that I am what I am today. And a lot of people put feelings behind what they don't like, and they get a lot of the circumstances of things that they don't like. So that's what they are.
well,
And
our
just
brains
don't
do that
realize.
naturally.
Yeah. So if we go back up to ideas come first, feelings come before the manifestation. Most ideas are suggested to us. Most ideas are suggested to us. That's not empowering. That creates ruts in our lives that we can't get out of. And it's not the type of ruts that we would like to have. How would you like to have ruts in the road that lead down a very beautiful path, and the birds are singing and the clouds are out and beautiful sky and the sun shining, and we can create those kind of ruts, but most people's ideas are suggested to them. And just like not even knowingly and not even unknowingly, it just happens. It just is. And that's not being awake. So consistent feeling is the secret to manifestation. So a lot of people, you can't turn the feelings off. Everybody's feeling about something because everybody can't turn their thoughts off. So the thoughts and the feelings are connected. They're woven together. And once we start to understand the principles, once we start to understand the principles, we start to realize, oh, there's a connection between what I'm thinking and feeling and what I'm experiencing. And then the more we understand those principles, the more we realize, oh, I can change the way I think and feel about things, and my experience will match that, whatever I change it to. That's a very empowering place to be. So if it is the feeling that we are looking for, then create it. Oh, if it's the feeling that we're looking for, then create that feeling now through turning the fantasy into a fact in our mind. Then you can have that feeling that you're looking for. You don't have to have the thing in your hands. Have it in your mind. If that's all you want is the feeling, then generate that feeling. But what you might find is, oh, it's a little bit more complicated than me just having that thing that's going to create this feeling.
Yeah.
It's way more complicated than that, but it's also related to that. So, everything that you were saying, I'm just kind of reiterating, but these principles teach us how and why we must take responsibility and discipline ourselves in order to have the circumstances that we want. It's not God that's just going to wave his wand and give it to you because you asked.
Yeah. And one clue that there's more work to do. I mean, if we can feel it for a minute, but it blinks off quickly, or the negative feeling comes back, even if we've been working so hard to focus on the thing that we want or the feeling that we want, it's a sign that we're only using the 10% of our brain to do that. And we have a filter that's clogged, that's the rest of our brain. And so it takes changing the filter. Our assumptions, our brain is automatically all the time, always assuming things. And that's for good reason, because if I had to think through every little thing that goes on around me, I won't accomplish much. If I have to think every time I see a stove, whether or not I should touch it, if I have to think every single step I take, and remind myself the process, I'm not going to get very far. So our brains do that on purpose. And a lot of them are mistaken assumptions. And like that 90% of our brain gets clogged. And so if you're constantly having to redirect the way you feel, it's a sign that there might be some more work that needs to be done. Validating our feelings instead of shutting them off goes a lot further. So anyway, I won't get down that road. It's an important road, but it's not what this is for. So anyway,
we'll come to it eventually. I mean, we go in and out of it. So let's go on. This therefore means that all individual exercise of this power is the particular application of a universal power, which itself operates creatively on its own account, independently of these individual applications. So we've got to align ourselves with these laws. We can't be a law unto ourselves. It doesn't work in the universe because our laws are the way that we think they should be, which is erroneous and therefore breaking the law. And you can't break a law and get a blessing. And when we become a law unto ourselves rather than submitting, there is a sense of submitting, but it's a submitting that's a win-win scenario. We're trying to fight our way to the life that we want, and we become a law unto ourselves. So if we don't submit to these universal principles, we're just fighting them. We're trying to make the laws up ourselves, like we know better, or, whatever it is, ego, or I don't want to do it that way because I don't want to do what you're telling me I have to do. If that's the kind of personality we have, that's the first thing we need to start working on. If you're somebody who can't be told what to do, then you're not going to do it. You're not going to, because you would be that's an inside thing. That's an inside job. That's an inside thing that needs to be looked at, evaluated, and find out how much is it really serving me if I can't be told what to do. Because the universe is telling us exactly what we need to do. If you can't take orders, then, we need to figure out where's the warped understanding of that, because we could put our trust in the universe. It always has our back. It never wants to create an antagonistic thing in our life. And so when we understand that, we submit to it, humility. And now I think where the warpedness comes in is where somebody else is trying to tell me what to do, and I don't want to do that. I don't want, somebody's trying to assert some kind of authority over us. That's not how the universe is exacting our obedience. It's not trying to usurp authority over us. And so we might get that, like God, some people will say they don't believe in God, or I don't believe in the same God you do because your God tells you what to do and commands you to do things. No, that's not how my God works. Yet I submit myself to, you know, the wisdom and love and understanding that God has in my behalf. And the universe is the same way, the universal principles. So if we're not willing to submit to that, like it's not me, it's not Carrie and me telling you, hey, you have to live the law of non-resistance. Hey, you got to have, you got to live the law of feeling, the principle of feeling, and the principle of assumption. That's not us telling you you have to do that. That's us realizing that, hey, this is a universal principle that will help all your dreams to come true. And we're just passing it on to you. But if inwardly, subconsciously, we've had people try to usurp authority over us, or maybe they abused us, and we look at that figure and somehow we tie that to the figure of any kind of classroom setting that's trying to tell you to do something that is a right principle, we might resist that. We might rebel against it to our own detriment. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. There's a lot of them. I'll just say, that resistance is a clue. And when you can figure out what's behind the resistance, it can make a lot of difference. For me, a lot of times the things that I'm resisting are the exact things that I actually need to do in order to make the change. And it's hard and scary to leave the comfort zone or to leave what's normal behind, even if normal isn't what we want. It's easier to stay in what we're used to because the unknown can be really scary. So that resistance is oftentimes like, no, your brain's trying to keep you safe. So just paying attention to anytime you feel resistance, like what is this about? Because it can be the first clue to what it is that you individually can choose to do to change everything. So.
Yeah, it really is submitting to these principles. And sometimes, like when we do our own work, like we've done a lot of work to get to where we are in our understanding and our philosophy on life. And that may be from a school setting, maybe from a religious setting, maybe both. It may be just through your own personal study. And then all of a sudden somebody comes along and says, hey, here's another way of looking at that and adding to that. It's different, but it's adding to it. And then we could resist that because like we feel like, well, that's not a part of what I've learned. Like we've learned it all. And so there could be no more to learn. And then that's where that ego comes in and that lack of humility. Like Bruce Lee says, if you won't allow me to teach you, if your cup's full, then I don't want to be your instructor because it's useless. So if you've learned to punch this way and turn your wrist a certain way and hold it at a certain angle, that's wrong. You learned the wrong way. Or you kind of got it right, but we just need to finish it off with this rotation right before you hit the object. If the person wants to resist that because they're like, no, this is how I learned to punch. And then Bruce Lee's like, well, then I can't, why are you coming to me as an instructor? Then you wanted to learn from me, but you're not putting into application what I'm teaching you. So why do you want me to be your instructor? Right? Yeah. Well, because you're an awesome fighter and you kick everybody's butt.
Yeah, the wrong way feels normal. And so when you learn the right way, it feels wrong.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. And so learning in and of itself, reading, studying, doing homework, writing papers, going to class, that's just the first part of learning. It's got to be experienced because then that's where we learn to course correct. If I continue to punch wrong, I'm going to break my wrist every time. And then I'm going to think it's everyone else's fault because I did it right. But then when I learn the right way that feels really wrong and throws me way off course, then suddenly my wrist doesn't break anymore. It's like, oh my goodness. But I can't know that unless I experience it. So we can't just learn only. We have to take what we learn into experientialness so that we can test what we're learning and actually put it to use. Because if I'm learning something and I'm getting the results I don't want, chances are I've learned it incorrectly and I haven't learned to put it into practice. So,
yeah, haven't gotten the results. If this guy comes to Bruce Lee, but he's losing in the fights, he's losing in the tournaments, then there's something he needs to learn in order to start winning. And so you go to Bruce Lee, but then when Bruce Lee suggests something, you're like, no, I'm not going to do it that way. No, it's not that. It's not that part of the punch that's wrong. Well, no, Bruce Lee is trying to tell you, yes, it is. So if we resist that, right? And this is a good place to end on with this thought. It says, so the harmony between the various individual applications, so us, is brought about by all the individuals bringing their own particular action into line with the independent creative action of the original power. So the original power says, you want that, you've been trying to get it this way, but there's some principles that say you can't do it that way, you've got to do it this way to get that. And so that's where the humility comes in, and we need to be teachable, and where our weaknesses could be made strengths. And our weaknesses are showing us we're not getting that. And so that should cause us to be humble, like, okay, I need to submit. I need to like turn over, my knowingness, which isn't getting me that. I need to turn it over to God and allow that to bring me the information that I need to know. Okay, oh God, I'm ready. Bring me the information. And then all of a sudden, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? So there are principles that are named. The law of attraction is a result. A lot of people think the law of attraction is an action. It's a result. It's the manifestation. So we got to reverse engineer what's before the manifestation, what's before the result. Well, the law of non-resistance, the law of assumption. Those are two main ones. But then also we got to have the idea, the original thought, the individual application, and how do we want to bring about particular actions in our lives. Carrie's dream life is not exactly like what my dream life is. Her day doesn't consist. She doesn't sit. We don't stand side by side throughout the day and experience every circumstance the same way. Her dream life is going to be a particular action, and my dream life is going to be a particular action. But we don't cancel each other out. So there's an allowing and there's a harmony that still exists between particular actions of the individuals. But what unifies us is that we're in alignment with the original power and the principles that uphold that particular action in a way that we're getting that. We're getting it. We're getting what we want. And so to me, that's what Zion is. Zion is where everybody's getting that which they want, but they're still doing their own individual application and their particular actions that they want to do throughout the day. But it's not canceling or negating or causing, what was the word he uses? Not aggravation. Antagonism. No antagonizing between us. There's no antagonizing between us. It doesn't mean we don't have our disagreements and things like that. It's because we don't always see everything the same way. And if we saw everything the same way from the principle, there wouldn't even be that antagonization. And because we do see a lot of the principles the same way, we have very little antagonizing between each other. And so it creates greater harmony. And that's what we need in the world. And that's what Zion is. That's where people are one heart and follow, the principles, but we're allowed to be individuals. So we'll end there, but any last thoughts you have on that?
Yeah, just a quick one. Like the way to see the original power in the same way is to remove all of the human filters. Because if we're learning about the original power, so if we're studying philosophy or religion through the filter of our humanness, which all of us do because we're all human, and we're taking that as truth, we're always going to be off base. We might have a tiny particle of the truth, but even that gets understood through our humanness. So we've got to be willing to look at the human filters that are in the way and be willing to be open to what else is there. And one way out of many is to come together with people and to put their human filter and connect it with your human filter and be open to both being a particle of the truth and realizing even that's not the truth, because there's a lot of human experiences that they come together and then find where they overlap. That original truth is going to reveal itself. The original truth doesn't exist in me, and it doesn't exist in Dave, and it doesn't exist in any one of the people who are listening. It's the bringing together of all of those, finding where they overlap and expanding what real truth is, because that way we can remove or at least be aware of the humanness that gets in the way of the truth. So anyway.
Yeah, I like that. This is the truth here. There's principles that are immutable. And I just listed three of them: love, the principle of love, the principle of assumption, assuming, the principle of law of non resistance. That's the truth. The way that we get the results, a lot of people are like, well, I want to know what being perfect is. There is no being perfect because results are going to vary. So all of this right here,
Well,
you know,
understanding is going to be
is a varying, and so the results that we're getting and the experiences that we're having, that doesn't represent perfection. It represents living a joyful life, and we are that. We might have joy and experience a joyful experience, and an experience where all of these together, all these different results that are varying, like Witzel calls it, the complexities of the universe, that creates the varying different things that we can all experience. And so many people are like, well, I want to be perfect. There is no perfect, because what's perfect? This one or this varying degree or this varying degree? What's perfect is the law and the principles, but those can be expressed in varying ways. And just because you may not like this type of music, but you like this type of music, doesn't make that one imperfect. And it doesn't make yours more perfect. And so perfection is really, it's a deceiving type of thing. I think the adversary uses to keep us frustrated and ever in search of trying to find joy, because we're forever trying to be perfect, and there is no perfect. There's varying degrees of experiences, and the way we accomplish those experiences and those results, if those are followed by the perfect laws, there will be harmony in the varying degrees. There won't be any antagonizing. And right now you see a lot of antagonizing in the world. That's because they're principle-less results that people are, producing in the world. And so it's pretty profound when you look at it. It's very simple how to create harmony in the world. Follow the principles. If we just all followed the principle of love, there would be respect, there would be honoring each other, and there would be none of this stuff. Just that one principle, the principle of love, would override all of the negative things in the world.
And it takes figuring out what it really means and not what we think it means. So,
Yep.
nice to be continued.
Okay, awesome. We will see you on the next one. Bye, everyone.